Hey everybody, welcome to Live on Wednesdays. Today we're going to talk about inflammation. Last week I talked a little bit about the different kinds of inflammation. There's chronic and there's acute. So today I'm going to talk about the symptoms of inflammation, and there are different symptoms for chronic and for acute inflammation. So if you remember from last week, inflammation is actually a good thing because it does tell us that our immune system is working. So that when we do come across things our body doesn't like, it tells us. It's just its way of telling us that, hey, I don't like what's going on, and makes us aware of it. And so we then pay attention to that area and see what we can do to assist in the healing process. So there are different things that our body will react to that it considers to be an intruder. And so when an intruder happens, it sends out a biological response. And there's different things that can be. So it may respond to a foreign body, like a sliver in your hand, like right there. That is like a little sliver piece that I've had in there for a couple weeks. I'm just waiting for it to work out. But you notice how there's a little redness around it, and that's the body saying, I don't like this thing there. So like a thorn, a sliver, something like that. Another intruder that could be considered would be like an irritant. So maybe a chemical or radiation, or what's another irritant? I'm not sure. Maybe something just like pollens too. I mean, those certainly are irritants to our body, causing us to have allergic responses. Or the third way would be pathogens. So this would be considered your germs, your viruses, your bacterias, things like that. So now when the body perceives its own cells and tissues as intruders, that's when you have chronic turning into autoimmune issues. And those are things, that's what you don't want, but I know many of us in this group have that. And so we will be addressing that a little bit here as well. So what can be considered acute inflammation symptoms? You have pain. That's probably maybe the first thing that you might feel. It could be when you touch the area, or it could just be a continuous radiation of pain, throbbing, or just a constant pain, and you don't have to be touching it. The second thing is redness. As I showed you, whoops, right there, redness. This happens because when something attacks our body like that, then there is an increase in what's called inflammatory mediators that the immune system produces. For instance, histamines that your body is producing, that's a reaction to something your body doesn't like. That's called an inflammatory mediator. And so when it sends out these inflammatory mediators, it increases the blood supply because it expands your capillaries. It increases then your blood supply, so more of that blood and nutrient and oxygen and whatever goes to that area. Okay, and so that then causes that redness. Now another thing that happens with these mediators, they can also cause fluid an increase of fluid to enter the area. And so then you have swelling, or it could be called edema. But this is also good because when you have swelling, fluid is what helps to get the yuckies, out of your body. So, and eventually that swelling goes down, hopefully. So we talked about pain, redness, swelling. There's also loss of function. Now, I'm not talking about like loss of function with your legs or your arm, not talking that kind of a function. That's a major thing. But I'm talking more of maybe your joint is aching and is painful, and so you're not able to move it like you normally would. That's considered a loss of function because you can't function the way you normally would. Breathing. Maybe during a bout of bronchitis, your breathing abilities has been reduced. That's a loss or decrease in function. Also, another thing that's very common is loss of smell. And like during colds or other viruses, the current virus that is plaguing everybody, one of the symptoms is a loss of smell. And the fifth symptom for acute inflammation is heat. And that again is because increased blood supply flows to that area and then it becomes warm to the touch. And I'm sure you've all experienced that, here, like you have maybe an area on your finger. I just can't get this. There we go. An area on your finger. And maybe this part right here is all red and swollen. And if you touch it, it could be hot. Many times areas that are red are going to have some heat attached to it as well. Okay. Now, just an FYI, there can also be a silent inflammation, which means there are no symptoms. You could also have tiredness, generally feeling unwell, and have a fever. Okay. There is a third type of inflammation. I won't go into it deeply, but it's also called subacute inflammation, and that is the stage between acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. So acute inflammation should typically only last a few days. Your subacute inflammation could last 2 to 6 weeks. But your chronic inflammation could last for months or years or a lifetime if we're talking an autoimmune disease. Because there are no cures for autoimmune diseases, but you can certainly manage them to the point where they can go into remission. And those kinds of inflammation are more like your diabetes, your cardiovascular disease, your Crohn's, your ulcerative colitis, arthritis, and other type of joint diseases, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis. And each one of those have their own specific symptoms. Some of them cross over and are very similar, but normally they will include pain and fatigue. So this is just a little brief overview of the different types of symptoms that you can be looking for under acute. Again, there's pain, redness, swelling, loss of function, and heat for acute inflammation. And it should really only be lasting a few days. You have your subacute inflammation it lasts for like 2 to 6 weeks. And remember, you can feel tired, you can feel just generally not feeling good, and you can have a fever with these things as well. But then if it goes beyond that to where it's lasting months or years, that's your chronic inflammation, and those have their own set of more multiple and deeper symptoms. So hopefully none of you are being inflamed today, and you can get outside. I know here in Wisconsin it is a pretty nice day out. A little bit of partly cloudy, partly sunny, but no rain. So if you can, get out, go for a walk, and try to keep up that energy and that immune system going. Sunshine is a great immune booster. We all need that vitamin D. So go be awesome, guys.